Welcome to the BitX Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of finance and growth strategies. I'm your host, Todd Rowe, and today we're taking a closer look at a topic that's crucial for business owners like you looking to scale in the modern world: digital marketing for business growth. We are thrilled to have a special and very knowledgeable guest with us today, an expert on digital marketing. She will shed the light on the significance of marketing for your business and how it can be a key driver for growth for your company. Joining us is Robin Fowler, a digital marketing maven with a personal story that is inspiring as her professional achievements. Today we'll talk about the essentials of marketing basics from small to mid-sized businesses, covering everything from traditional above-the-line ATL strategies to the latest in content production, social media, paid strategies, and more. Get ready for an episode packed with actionable advice and solid strategies. So hold on tight and let's roll the intro. And our guest today is Robin Fowler, Vice President of Ferocious Digital. And she's a marketing maverick. And she's got a great personal story. And she's relentless. She's passionate. She's focused. And she's ferocious. And so, she's got a strong personality and a lot of knowledge in the marketing space. And get ready. We have a great episode ahead of us here. And I also want to introduce Rhea. And she's my intern here at Sacred Heart University. And she's got a lot ahead of her in her career. And she, is another female woman joining in the marketing space. And welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thanks, Todd.
Okay. So, Robin.
Yes.
Who are you and who is Robin Fowler?
So I am Robin Fowler. I'm the VP of Digital Sales at Ferocious Digital. I work with all size businesses and helping them strategize their marketing plans, whether they straddle traditional media and digital marketing, but most of my time is spent in digital marketing. Everything from website development to driving leads, search engine marketing and optimization, social media ads fall into that space as well, content generation around social media and your website strategy, as well as how you're really going to brand your business, going outside of all of those things and thinking about how you're going to leverage connected television, how you're going to leverage getting on somebody's podcast, how you're going to leverage, using your images for banner ads that you might see on a site like weather.com.
Wow. And so that's fantastic. So let's first start talking about, women in business and women in marketing. And so, Rhea, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we have already spent some time with Robin prior to this meet, and she has told us of her story, and it's been really inspiring to me personally. I guess, well, firstly, I'm just here to listen and learn and just absorb. But if you could tell the audience really who is Robin Fowler and how did you get into digital marketing? I know you started off with radio, so you've kind of seen that shift from traditional to digital. Just your story, really.
Yeah, I think I've always been enthusiastic about marketing and branding from a very young age. So I knew I wanted to be in marketing when I was 14 years old. I was in a communications and film class in high school. I loved my teacher, Peter Concilio, a very inspiring guy. And I just knew that's what I wanted to do. I got involved in what was available to me at that moment in time, which was working on our high school yearbook of all things. That turned into pursuing that in college, where I pursued a degree in communications. So it immediately fell in love with television, radio, everything around content at that point in time. And then as I got out of school, I got into radio advertising, which was an unexpected turn along the way, and ended up running radio stations and left that and got into digital marketing because I really saw it as a very strong future.
Oh, that's awesome. So I just had a few questions in mind that I'd like to ask you. Number one, in your experience, what digital marketing channels have shown the most success for small businesses, do you think?
I think that for the small business, first most important is having a really well-organized website. And it's hard for them when they go to these platforms and they can do it themselves to understand what's facing the consumers, not necessarily facing the search engines underneath the hood, right? So it's important that they have the right type of search engine optimization associated with that site, thinking about like really core basics like a Google business page. Many industries can leverage Google Ads. It's not for everybody, but it does apply to many, many industries. Social media marketing has tremendous value. I think that where I see businesses miss the mark is not having appropriate video and photography content and having a real plan about what they're going to do. And that's where, depending upon the size of their business, tapping a professional to organize that for them is very helpful. There are certainly tools within social media that require that in the moment, live moment that you can capitalize on. But there's a lot that can be planned around maybe you doing that yourself. Mm-hmm. That's important to know. And, there's a lot that you can do in the branding space. So in that whole programmatic real-time advertising to audiences that are very specific. When I arrived today, I was just talking to one of my sales managers about a client who's in the floral business and really focusing in on people that are planning a wedding and how you go about that from a data perspective. You can do that as a local business owner to present your business to the right person in the right moment that matters.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. My second question would be, how can small businesses measure the effectiveness of their digital marketing efforts with like a limited budget?
They really have to try to understand Google Analytics, which can be tough. You may want to have somebody set that up for you and show you some of the basics so that you can see the growth and that's happening in your business and how people are really understanding your business and consuming the content on your website. A lot of that has to do with, are you driving the right types of people to the website? Mm-hmm. Or are they being able to find you organically? So getting a handle on that is pretty important.
So I want to bring it back a little bit. So what is the biggest mistake a small business owner can make when it comes to, marketing?
Probably budgeting and financing, which is where you come in, right? Yeah. I think that even the SBA says you need to invest double digits to promote to consumers, like 11%. And I think a lot of business owners start these businesses and they just don't really have adequate funding, or they're not thinking through maybe even having a more aggressive budget when they get started. And it's also organizing not based on what you love to do. So you might be in an industry where social media is really important and you think you want to spend all your budget there. And certainly it's a phenomenal tool for local businesses, but you don't want to ignore the other things that are very critical to your business and industry, like paying attention to your Google business page, Google Ads, those other types of resources.
Like as a business owner myself, I like to look at it as, can I get 3 times return on investment? So if I spend 20% of my annual revenue on marketing outreach, can I get that back in return? And so, as we kind of get into this, I want to talk about these different mediums and, and what your take is on return on investment. So what about a business plan? I mean, how often do you come across small business owners that have a solid marketing business plan?
Really solid, honestly. It's rare because I think, small business is driven by a real entrepreneurial spirit. So when they're met with a good idea, they may pivot and find money for something that's very compelling in the moment. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's how we come to work with people. But I think they just have to be careful to not overspend.
Yeah. And then, but how do you make sure that they stay on path? And because there's so many choices out there. And then if you have your total spend, how do you make sure that you're spending it correctly and consistently? To hit the mark.
When you work with really large businesses, you have a much better understanding of scalable data around like what works from a cross-channel, omni-channel marketing perspective, right? So we try to apply that to the small business, but then we have to help them make prudent choices. So if you've got a newer business, you may only do like a website, maybe get a small scale Google Ads campaign going. You might do a little something in social media marketing, whether you're boosting your own content or you're running a small ads campaign. And how can you get into that real-time bidding programmatic advertising opportunity? It might be small scale, more along the lines of display ads versus trying to get involved with streaming television out of the box. Maybe you get your sales going, so you've got opportunity to have the right production and the right content to really leverage that opportunity, or other video opportunities like pre-roll, which is being in advertising before shorter form content on any device. Typically, people are watching that on mobile or desktop, laptop.
Can you help me define programmatic? It's a big word, but can you break it down?
It's no different than, really, when you think about programmatic, it applies to any one of these advertising tools that we're talking about. So people could look at the Google Display Network as programmatic. They could look at social ads as programmatic. So essentially, there's a lot of factors and levers that get pulled to get your business in front of the right consumer at the right moment that matters based on their interests at that moment in time. So very simply, if I play golf, right? It's one of my passions. And so when I was looking for a new 5-wood, there I would be, like, reading the golf articles, watching the videos, following the pros on social, trying to figure out what I want to buy. And so then certainly wherever I am on the internet, now that could mean whether I'm on weather.com or I'm looking at the stock market or I'm reading a business article, all of these fabulous 5-woods are presenting themselves to me because of my, online journey. And that's what's so great about it, is being able to advertise to people in real time based on their interests.
Okay, great. So let's kind of get into that a little bit deeper. So let's talk about traditional marketing, such as radio, TV, email, mailers, and how do I continue to put my brand out that way that may not have that, the ability to know that I'm in the market for a 5-wood, but it's telling the audience in the local area that, hey, I'm here as a golf pro or a golf shop or, retailer.
So they're all unique and different. Okay. Direct mail is a tool that you're going to use more along the lines of a little more audience specificity. It depends upon who you're buying it from and how deep the data is you're going to buy for a mailing list. The concern there is are people really consuming it? Are they trashing it? What's really happening? And it's funny because my colleagues that are in that industry are talking about a little bit of a renaissance. I think it's probably because people are kind of back to like a normal pace. So I don't think that it's got its place in a marketing plan. TV is very different because it's not always that affordable. Cable television is certainly more affordable than buying from a network station in your regional market. But it's interesting because now the TV space is so segmented and so many people are leaving cable television, watching. They're not really watching traditional signals. Very rare you see antennas on houses, right? And so now they're streaming television content. And you can see that's how, one of the biggest content providers of last year was the NFL. And it's the combination of that linear television people are following through those that have cable. And then there's those cord cutters that are, streaming that kind of content as well.
Yeah, I'm a cord cutter. I got rid of cable and I went over to streaming, just bought my internet connection through my cell phone provider. And now I'm starting to see, ads, on, Google, and those ads are coming right at me because I did my own Google search, and now it's coming in through my TV. And so it's something as a fintech lending company that I want to know who in the marketplace wants a small business loan now versus 6 months from now. And so if I can capture those individuals and get them to come to BitX and get their financing is very attractive. So can you talk a little bit more about that technology? And like you mentioned it, like it's, you can now buy through the certain providers versus the big networks, and it could be cost effective, and, you can pick out your areas that you want to target.
Yeah. And I want to come back to radio because we mentioned traditional. Yeah. This is a little bit of a passion point of mine, but to answer your question in regards to programmatic. So programmatic advertising, it's a complex advertising space. You typically need somebody who's buying it at volume to participate in that versus a self-serve model might be positioning your business in less attractive locations, right? So you want to get on a wide variety of inventory, and your goal is really to get in front of an audience, right? So I am a small business owner. I've got an interest in business topics. I'm looking at lending. There are some restrictions around financing and lending and advertising in that whole space, in terms of privacy. So that makes that a little more challenging. But there is a lot of data around trying to build an audience that would be the right audience for someone like yourself, as an example.
And then it goes back to radio. I'm here in Connecticut, and I've never thought of radio, and I should think of radio. And so why radio?
It is consumed by 88% of the people in the United States, which is shocking. I think there is those that don't consume it are very loud about the fact that they don't consume it, but there is far more of the masses. We have stations here in the local marketplace. We're reaching well over 1 million people on a weekly basis. It's pretty amazing across our stations. And you have to think about, my favorite analogy for someone in radio is like, would you go to the local amphitheater and want to talk to everybody sitting in a seat, whether it's 5 or 10,000 people? And the answer is yes. Well, now imagine doing that like 50x. That's amazing to be able to talk to that size audience. And just the way the medium works, radio and also television ads are like the most immersive thing that you have with sight and sound. And by hearing a radio story, somebody's talking about driving a red convertible down the street and it's a sunny day, and you start to paint a picture in your mind. That's the beauty of it. It's just that one-on-one communication, just like we're doing right now.
Yeah. And so I'm here, again, working with Rhea here at Sacred University on social media and different type of content and how to distribute that content. So, Rhea, you want to help us out with some questions on social media platforms such as like TikTok and Instagram, and what are the possibilities? Both from a paid and non-paid.
Well, organic, I would say that all businesses need to jump on because it's free and you can do so much and the reach is just unlimited. Someone sitting out of Tunisia somewhere can see what you're doing. With paid, definitely it's a more immediate way of getting your business in front of like people. If organic isn't working for you, because that takes time to build your SEO and everything. But with paid, you can just get the word about your business out there. Do you have any like hacks per channel that you can sort of touch base on, like TikTok or Instagram, something?
Yeah, I think TikTok is very much to be determined what it means for the local business. It's a very cool emerging platform. It's super in the moment, which makes it harder to partner with an agency on planning ahead, because the trend that you plan for today could be over by the time you get to posting that content if you're trying to plan ahead, which is typically how you're working with an agency. You're planning probably in 30-day windows, at least 2 weeks to 30 days, depending upon what your situation is. But the other channels certainly are very helpful as pillars for a business. People want to discount Facebook. It's still the largest social media channel out there, so we don't want to discount that. Some people blur YouTube in the social media space. I think of it as more as a video research search engine kind of thing. It does have its whole entertainment component, and I'm talking about YouTube, the website, versus YouTube TV. But when we think about the other social media channels, Instagram covers such a very important demographic group, pretty broad now. So that those are really like your up and comers from a financial standpoint. So that's pretty critical as well. And then LinkedIn, certainly, if you've got a professional audience, just you have to keep in mind, people will spend a lot more time because of the social and brand aspects of a Facebook and an Instagram. They're going to spend a lot more time there than they're going to spend on a LinkedIn. So like a marketing program in LinkedIn for a local business is tough to do because of that limited time. Typically, it's somebody who's targeting a much larger region.
Yeah.
And I'll speak to it as a business owner. I find that TikTok is untapped, and you are correct that the content has to be fresh and immediate. So every week you wake up that day, whatever's going on that day is what you're going to post, and you really can't prepare for it. You just have to be willing and able to put yourself out there and put those videos out there. But the reach is phenomenal because it's not being pushed down like a Facebook or a YouTube, where in a sense they like the pay for play
They do.
But TikTok wants content. They're content hungry, so they'll take it, and if it's good content, they'll push it.
But they'll turn that corner.
Yeah,
There comes a point in time where, having your finance background, you got to pay for the bills and keep the lights on, right? So that's how they all become more financially motivated and how it's going to work. And you can't, like when you were talking about social media content, even if you go with just a social media content on, let's say, like an Instagram and a Facebook, you've got to have that extra budget to boost that content.
Yep.
Because there's no guarantee it's going to get in front of your existing followers as it is,
right?
Or organically be discovered. It can be, not to say that it can't be, but you definitely want to have that extra little insurance going.
Sure. Yeah. And I agree with you on YouTube. YouTube, when Rhea brought it and to my attention, it's like, when people are like, what is a merchant cash advance? And then if we have a whole video up there explaining what a merchant cash advance is, that's how they're going to find us, from a research standpoint. And we find that wonderful.
Yeah, and just adding on to that, I think small businesses need to, because right now the trend I'm seeing is short form content. Mm-hmm. So on all channels, you have to sort of do those 15 to 30 seconds video that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very important.
We break down short term versus long form.
Yeah, so for the advertising platforms, when we go back to programmatic advertising or we're thinking about social media ads, that shorter form video, that 15 seconds that really grabs somebody's attention and sucks them into those first 9 seconds is so important. That's what's really critical versus longer form now. I might be an explainer video on a website or a product video. If you think about it like you're on Zappos and you're watching the high heel shoe video, always interesting to see the tour of the shoe and its practicality and what it's made of and all that stuff. Sometimes I can get sucked into that from shoe to shoe for quite a while. I love to shop. It's a hobby. So, anyway, but it's helpful, but it's not the same thing as a 15-second ad and it's moving really fast and it's really sucking you in, right? The explainer video is a little longer, more involved. People use them a lot for businesses on their homepage, on their website. Having that same video living on that YouTube channel is really key as well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I like it from an SEO standpoint. More things spidering around the web, the better off you are. And
great point.
And more it boosts your brand and your company.
Correct.
And your reach.
And being consistent as well.
And being consistent.
Yep.
Excellent point.
All right. So great. So let's talk about influencers and personalization. So what are your thoughts, you two, on influencers and where are they in the marketplace for a small business owner versus maybe a large corporation, let's say like Makeup Maybelline? So if I'm just a small retail selling the makeup or if I'm a big brand. So what is an influencer to me as a small business owner?
I think it's tough in the local community to find the right influencer, right? Like a micro influencer. There are tools that are available. There are agencies who specialize in identifying micro influencers. I had shared a story with you all that we have friends in the broadcast business who definitely tried to do that, identifying micro influencers in their local markets and tying in clients with those. And, ironically, what we find in radio is our personalities on air are influencers. They have massive followings on social media. They have tens of thousands of people listening to them every day, or hundreds of thousands, depending upon the size of the station. And they are very influential when they endorse products. It moves consumers. I mean, I found myself just buying something from a client because I was so sold by, one of our on-air talent doing endorsements for that client. So that's one way to look at it. Mm-hmm. But for the local business, if you don't have that at your disposal, and now you're just trying to find influencers in the local community, they're there. The question sort of becomes, if I'm a business, I start tagging some influencers when I'm posting my social media, they come back and they want to talk about doing some kind of arrangement. Now the question is, if they have 37,000 followers, how many are they really in your local community, and understanding, utilizing software tools to understand where that following lives, to make sure you're connecting with the right person. It's a lot easier for a large national brand with a big budget. I'm Dunkin' Donuts. Now I have this amazing Super Bowl ad, and I've got a room full of influencers, right? From J-Lo to Tom Brady, and then, of course, husband Ben and everybody else who's standing around the room.
Yeah.
Rhea, have any feedback on influencers? Coming from your age demographic?
I think Robin hit the nail on the head with that one. But if I have to add anything, it would be definitely knowing what your budget is, because these influencers, be it micro or macro, they're just not that cheap anymore compared to like pre-COVID, which they were, is what I've seen working with them. And then sort of how many posts they're going to give you, if they're going to do the cross posting on all of their handles, or if it's just one. And how you need to see how vested they are in your brand, like the efforts they're trying to make into really understanding you, so that they can bring that same thing on their channel as well to their followers. Yes, I think it's a budget thing, and like.
But I would think consistency. They're not just with you for a month, but they're with you for a long period of time.
If you have somebody really dynamic in your business, you were talking about this the other day, Rhea, that you could potentially like spin them up as your own influencer, right? As your own spokesperson. Sometimes you'll see that in the beauty industry. Like they'll have somebody internally that's just so passionate about what they're doing. They become like the face of the video on Insta, TikTok, and whatever else. And so that can be done. I think at a local SMB level, it's a little harder.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about paid now, because paid is instant gratification. And so let's start off at radio, and then break it down from radio to, say, TV to pay per click, social media, et cetera. So, what is your take on paid in 2024? And all these different medians, and going back to the budget and going back to the spend, how do we do it appropriately?
A lot of that has to do with industry. So it sort of starts at the ground level. You think about an advertising funnel, so your brand awareness. So brand awareness is making sure that you're top of mind with the right audience. So when they have a triggering event and they're interested, old school marketing, they're interested in your products and services, that they think of you first. No different than I heard the person that I feel is like one of our influencers talking about this client, and I ended up buying from them, right? So when I had this emergency, I ended up turning to them to buy what I needed. So same kind of principle. So you have to think about that triggering event. Now I'm going to contact someone. So you want to have your name out there so that people know you. We see the evidence in data that we see through Google Ads. If you are the better known brand, the better marketed brand, you will get a better response in Google Ads, and you'll really be able to stretch your budget farther. More people will be coming to you because they know your brand name, which is very inexpensive to advertise for versus advertising for your specific services or products. Does that make sense?
I like that. You just blew my mind.
Well, here's the other thing I want you to think about. So McKinsey came out with the loyalty loop. So, there's and I use the marketing funnel as brand awareness, consideration, and then we have, we actually pull the trigger, we buy from the client, we become a customer. McKinsey's view of that is the loyalty loop is that just keeps going around in a circle, right? So I have this trigger event, I enter research, I become a customer, but then I still need to be marketed to because I could come back around or make referrals. And I think what I often see is when you talk to local business owners is they don't have a clear understanding of cost of entry to acquire that customer and the lifetime value of that customer. And they rarely think about the business in terms of profit centers. They're often focused because they're entrepreneurs and they're competitive. What is Joe over there doing with his business that I should be doing? What is Joe selling that I should be selling? Instead of kind of understanding the DNA of what's going well for you and what you're doing well and what you could be doing more of that you're doing well. So there's sort of the profit center question of what's going really well from my profit center standpoint and what's not going well, what could be going better based on what I see Joe and everybody else doing. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So now from an advertising marketing perspective is you want to have a consistent plan. There are a lot of industries where we start with direct response and sort of build up to brand marketing, where it's a better scenario that I see is when we can bring it all together, at least from a digital marketing standpoint, and then add in the traditional marketing. So we have a lot of large scale situations that we're working on recently that involve not only a full digital complement. I'm going to do lead generation. I'm going to have, an SEO component. I'm going to do this programmatic piece, everything from display advertising to streaming television ads. And now I'm going to go to radio and tie all those things together. That is a really powerful mix. And it solves to the problem of not only bringing in new customers, but staying in front of your existing customers.
That's a lot of work.
Well, we do the work for you.
And to do it correctly.
Yeah, so that's the beauty, is we have all the resources to do it for you.
So let's talk about AI. It's all in the news. We're seeing it, in your chat GPTs and the new headsets that everyone's using at home and using it in all different types of mediums. So what is your thought on AI when it comes to marketing in 2024 and then into the future?
Well, I think it's funny in my business conversation. So I do a lot of networking across many industries, and I am blown away by the smart people in the room who think AI just showed up last year with ChatGPT. Not true. It's been around for a very long time. Certainly, while the ideas might have started before the 50s, the initial foray into AI started in the 50s with really creating this computer artificial intelligence. And now what we're seeing is just an escalation of technology. There certainly is a lot more awareness about it. I think understanding like how these things are tools, they're not really used to do a job, but they're more used to complement a job and skill. Whether you're writing content or clients often say, well, I don't need you to write the content for this. I'm just going to use ChatGPT. That is a bad idea, right? Because this technology is continuing to be perfected. Mm-hmm. You don't know if it's replicating something that's already on the internet. So you want to have more genuine, original content, which is why you want some human interaction in that to modify that. And more importantly, it also can hallucinate.
So what do you mean by that?
So it can hallucinate, and it can create false information. You probably heard the story about the attorney who utilized it as a resource, as one resource, and it turned out it had hallucinated something. I can't remember the specific story, but it was like a big news story several months ago. And so I think understanding that it's a tool to maybe, when you're writing content, twist tone of voice, attitude, it's a cool tool. These writing tools are great to have fun with, like you write a piece of content and you run it through it and you ask it to be more dynamic. And then it's funny how dramatically exaggerated it'll make it. And then you have it pull it back. And so I was just doing this for fun exercise, but they're cool to play around with. They're definitely an assistant. Will it change our jobs and types of jobs and the way we work and the scale at which we work? Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of technology in our field in digital marketing. It's been around, Google is built on AI, well over 20 years old, right? Meta is built on AI. These things aren't new. The whole programmatic industry is built on AI. That started back in the late 2000s. These things are all around now, 20 plus years, and the technology is here and here to continue to evolve. You can't beat an algorithm.
No.
In my travels, people talk about, well, you see LinkedIn and you really understand the algorithms. I'm like, what are you talking about? These engineers and the technology is moving so much faster than you are. You just have to observe. So I think that's the most fun thing about what we do is understanding when you modify things, how that affects the outcome. And there are twists and turns in the outcome you don't plan for because things are always changing. And that's what keeps it really exciting.
As a business owner that sits and looks at Google Analytics every day and looks at Google Search Console every day and looks at SEMrush every day and trying to outwit the AI is very impossible.
You can't do that.
Yeah, you try your best, but
you can't do that. And it's so complex now. As you change campaigns for things, there has to be a learning phase. There has to be time for that to kind of manifest itself, observe the outcome, and then modify it. And there's more modifications coming as you're modifying. So you really got to do things in phases.
Yeah. You got a strategic, consistent, in phases, and put the whole plan together, as you say, with radio and everything, so everyone is aware of the brand.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line, and it's hard coming from your background, having that financial background and that instant sort of understanding of how finances work and data and the financial markets and all of that, coming from that perspective. When you're looking at this digital marketing data, you can't treat it exactly the same way, because the anomaly of all this is who's in the market for this in any given moment in time. And that's a thing that constantly changes. And there will be very unexpected twists and turns based on movements in the markets, consumer sentiment. What are they hot to buy today, not hot to buy tomorrow? The weather can affect some industries. Like there's a lot that goes in. It's not the same. I think the local business owner thinks the same amount of people are in the market to buy their goods and services every day, all day long, at every hour of the day. And that's not true.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what the AI allows you to do is get in front of those people when they're in the market.
It's funny that Robin mentioned the whole hallucination thing, because I've taken up this AI and marketing course in my program. And the professor had us do this one experiment of sorts. So he took 5 of us, and then he basically told ChatGPT to make a biography on each of us. And the way it hallucinated was insane. Like it made one of us astronauts, the other one's lawyers. Crazy. But after conducting all of these sort of experiments, this is what I've learned, is that we do have generative AI in the market. So it can make all of this content for you, but it needs that human intervention. Like we're there to steer them.
Right.
And then prompt them correctly, because I think prompt engineering is one thing. It's like this rising career now.
Right.
So it's basically guiding these AIs. And they do all the hard work, you just direct them.
Right.
And then sort of,
Yeah, I think it's like presenting very cool tools to scale. And then there are times where it almost seems like, is this thing a little more complex than it needs to be? Or what is the real purpose of the tool? Some of the advertising tools you have to really keep an eye on, or types of things that you can do with some of these advertising channels, could lead to spending more money, not necessarily having the most financially productive return.
Oh, I did have one question actually. So what are some key trends in digital marketing that small business owners should be aware of in 2024, do you think?
I think the most important thing is understanding, like, you have got to start to do 2 very key things. One is content library, your own photos, your own organic videos. Start doing it. While you might be dabbling in social media video, get some invest in some professional video production. It makes it's a dramatic difference. If you've got the right type of ads, 15 and 30 seconds, you can start to leverage them on social affordably. You can get into that programmatic space pretty affordably, which is really important. The other thing is mining your first party data. I think we often focus too much on new customer acquisition, and we don't think about the fact that your customers come back, and customers that left you 3 years ago may still come back around. And people are so lost in research before they make a decision on the internet. Google published a piece during COVID, and they talked about the consumer journey is the triggering event, but now I go to the internet and they call it messy in the middle, and I'm all over doing this research. I'm over here reading an article, then I'm over here reading reviews about that particular business, and I'm back over here on social media, and most people are looking at probably 10 places before they select you as their partner. And it's the influence of, think about it, the original marketing tactics of, do I have brand awareness? Do they know you? So your name is popping off the page when I'm in Google search, or I see that social ad and maybe I'm a little more intrigued because in the back of my mind, I know you, right? That's how you get in that consideration set. And today's consumer final consideration set is like a very short list, but there was a lot that went into making that short list.
You're actually making me really think, because what's my click-through rate today? And then if I implement a lot of the things that we talked about, would my click rate rise, meaning people are stickier, people stay on the site longer because they've already done all that journey correctly, and versus just landing on me once and then bouncing right out?
Well, there is no doing the journey correctly, and the AI is going to change who comes to the site and how that works and what the stickiness of all that is. And I think depending upon the tactic at which they arrived at the site, if they got there organically, they're more likely casually shopping, they're kind of in maybe a slower, less frantic research phase, and they're probably going to hang out a little longer, right? They're going to go through a few pages on the site. If the site's well organized, there's a few pages that are interesting. In your business, as an example, there's specific products. I may only want this one product. I go to that page. I feel like I got what I wanted. We've talked about this before. And then I leave. I'm out. I'm good.
Right.
I know what you do. I know you can do it. There are other situations where I might be casually shopping for one thing. I go somewhere and now I'm going to like sort of look around and I'm going to look at more than one page and look at more than one option. If I'm, that could be a different situation. I'm a business owner. I'm looking for capital to really grow my business in a couple different ways. I'm trying to understand my options. Now I'm going to spend more time on your site, right, on a few more pages. But keep in mind, if I'm coming there through a Google ad for one specific service, I may not necessarily be going more than another page versus if I come in organically, I might spend some more time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is a great conversation, and I want to give you a chance to kind of talk about Ferocious Digital and what it can do for the small and mid-sized business or even the large business. What did it mean to me as a business owner to do business with you? Because, everything we just talked about is dizzying and I can't do it alone. And, I need a team behind me and you're a great team. So if you can kind of like bring it together for me.
Sure. The coolest thing about what I do are the folks that I work with. So I work with an amazing team of experts. They're all very seasoned, whether it's the person that designs a website or the person that actually codes a website or the person that's writing the content for the website or the content generation team. The paid ads experts, whether we're talking about Google ads, social ads, or the programmatic suite that we talked about, they're all incredibly passionate about the customers themselves seeing really good success. And on the front end of that is our account management team. And what we really pride ourselves is actually responding to people. So we're in an industry where people really don't respond. It's, you can hear there's a lot going on behind the scenes with digital marketing. And there is a lot to research. And it's important to, like, when someone has a question, to get back to them or let them know that you've got to research the answer and when you expect to get back to them. And sometimes it involves like analysts digging really deep and we don't have an answer in 2 hours. It might take a little longer. But that customer response is really important. And I think it also starts with our outstanding customer service. On the sales side, we've got very passionate people and they really want to partner with the right client, the right fit, and they are involved in the recommendations. That's what I do with our sales departments is we come up with the sales strategy and then turn it over to the team to execute. And then the team will help the client expand on that as they can afford and as things pivot in the business, if that makes sense. So we're very focused on helping people. If we can't help you, we're going to tell you, which is rare. But we have lots of different industries that we can work with. And we just love the opportunity to talk to you. Most people come to us because they're really frustrated with someone who never explains anything clearly, never answers the phone, has poor reporting. Like those are sort of there's a lot of tools in the industry to use for reporting, but it's one thing to throw it at someone. It's a whole nother thing to have them understand the relationship of how's that helping my business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or having a monthly meeting and saying, let's go over the numbers.
Yeah. You want to define that success, and depending upon what you're doing, sometimes it involves more than a monthly meeting. Sometimes it involves a meeting every 45 days. It's, could be weekly. It really varies on the size and scope of what you're doing.
And just go over one more time the services that are under your umbrella.
Sure. So we do website design, search engine marketing and optimization, which is driving leads. So in search, lots of opportunity there. You have Google, you have Bing, you have Yahoo, you have Yelp, you have everything Meta, Facebook and Instagram fall into that. And then we have, brand building. So brand building is everything from not only building that content for the website, but ongoing optimization strategies and content. I had mentioned SEO prior. Social media falls into that. And then we have brand building through video. So that's, streaming television. How are we getting your ads in streaming television? How are we getting your ads in front of people when they're watching like game highlights on CBS Sports? How are we getting you in music and podcasts, Spotify and other types of content channels? And how are we leveraging banner ads? And there's lots of different tactics around banner and native advertising in that same suite. So it's a lot.
And radio.
And radio is amazing. So we have our parent company who owns all the local radio stations here in the market. And they just do an amazing job, whether they're entertaining you or they're educating you or they're sharing good or bad news about the community. And they're so passionate about our community. We do a lot of events and things to support the community right here across Fairfield and New Haven County.
Yeah. So, Robin, you'd mentioned something earlier about being the right fit for Ferocious. Could you shed a little more light on that?
Yeah, I think the ideal client is somebody who is looking for a partner, and they definitely are open to our recommendations, right? And they have reasonable expectations about what to get out of digital marketing. None of this, we can't wave a magic wand, and especially because so much of this is about learning through data to really maximize your opportunity over time.
Yep.
So, Robin, how does the audience get a hold of you and Ferocious Digital?
GetFerociousDigital.com.
Okay.
Very good. And you can also reach us through our Connecticut sales team. So that's connoisseurmediact.com as well.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us on this episode of BitX Podcast, where we delve deep into the world of digital marketing for business growth. We extend our sincere gratitude to our special guest, Robin Fowler, for sharing her expertise in marketing in 2024 and providing that valuable insight. If our conversation sparked any ideas or questions, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you found this episode informative and helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others. By doing so, you'll help us reach a wider audience and spread the knowledge about digital marketing for business growth. Stay up to date with everything we're putting out in social media. You'll find our link in the bio. We'll keep you up to date with the most relevant information in the world of finance and growth. Don't forget to check out Robin Fowler and her social media channels for more insight and inspiration. Thanks once again for tuning in to another BitX podcast. We hope you gained valuable insight and had a few moments of inspiration. Stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll see you in the next one.